Call, please.
Mayor Holland?
Here.
Vice Mayor Branquinho?
Here.
Councilmember Barbosa?
Here.
Councilmember Danko?
Here.
Councilmember Clufus?
Present.
Mayor, all members are present.
Thank you. Now move to public participation. It's the beginning portion of public participation on our agenda. These are items to be discussed not on our agenda. I would ask each speaker to please state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes will begin.
I think,
Come up to the podium.
yeah.
Can you make sure, Doug? Thank you.
Good morning, Vincent Liguri. Last November, I presented to the council an issue to the council dealing with the aerial intrusion of hazardous trees and limbs onto adjoining properties. Our goal is to expand the ordinance to assign the removal and costs of hazardous trees and limbs due to aerial intrusion to the property owner responsible for the problem. Mayor, 2 weeks ago, I was invited to attend a Zoom meeting on this subject at City Hall. My thanks to Mr. Morton, the City Clerk, Virginia Smith, Manager Barbara Grossman, and City Attorney William Reichman for inviting me and for their invaluable input. This was an outstanding example how the city and citizens should work together for progress. The good news, as reported by Attorney Reichman, is that it is within the purview of the council to expand the ordinance as proposed. Palm Coast currently has approximately 16,000 vacant lots. Code expansion would apply to vacant lots and residential properties. The procedures for city administration of violations are currently in place via wildfire mitigation. A city fee administration of violations are currently in place, a city fee-based function which incorporates contracting of vendors, payments, and collection of charges and lien processing. The benefits of this proposal are reduction of civil suits expenses, elimination of costly tree and limb removal charges to citizens who are not responsible for the problem, avoiding damage to homes and other structures due to storms, reduced insurance costs, and lastly, most importantly, life-saving. I have discussed this proposal with many city residents. They agree with the proposed change to the ordinance and consider the change logical and commonsensical. We urge the council to approve this proposal. Mayor, I thank all concerned parties for their participation and civic efforts. A job well done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Sines. I moved here in 2018, and although I come from a very big city up north, I'm not one of those northerners that wants to come down here and change anything. I don't want down here to be like up there. I'm here to ask for your help for my neighborhood. I live on Cimarron Drive. I walk my dog every morning for 3 miles, 4 if I can handle it. And I've had to quit walking on Cimarron Drive since March. I now drive to a preserve and walk my puppy down Palm Harbor Parkway down to European Village or wherever, how far we can make it. The reason I have to drive to walk my dog is because the swales on both sides of Cimarron Drive slants the terrain towards the swale. There's a litter, there's chunks of asphalt in there, so it makes walking on that difficult. I walk against the traffic so I can watch it and so I can move. And in March, a truck was coming towards me. Dog was already on the grass. I could tell he was coming right at me. So I jump over to the swale, and he actually swerved off the road onto the grass. I didn't get hurt. My dog didn't get hurt. He was looking at his phone. What I'm asking you for is to help us. I'm no engineer. I don't think you can even do sidewalks there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a bike path. There's a lot of walkers, there's a lot of joggers, there's a lot of dogs. It's just become dangerous. And I feel like it's not, it's kind of stupid to go drive so I can walk my gosh darn dog. Yes, I use the dog park, I love the dog park, but I need my exercise too. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Good morning, Mayor Holland, council members. I'm here to also address the situation on Cimarron. I am a walker of about 6 miles, 5-6 days a week that I started up during the pandemic, and the situation has just gotten to be so dangerous. As the previous speaker mentioned, the roads deteriorate as they get to the edge. They do slant down, so we're walking kind of at a tilt. If you go off the road, you might hit a ditch or a dip where it's lost a lot of the dirt. Sometimes the grass is even with the road. Sometimes it's a 4 or 5 inch drop. We have to share the road, literally, with the traffic. The trucks take up the entire road, and with all of the lots being built upon, the truck traffic has significantly increased. We are asking that some study be done, that something be done for us so that we can leave our houses in relative safety and walk throughout the neighborhood. Probably most of my walk is on Cimarron, and so I'm well aware of all of the traffic daily around 8, 9 in the morning to sometimes 10 or 11. But we would appreciate that situation being addressed, and hope that something will come so that we can enjoy our neighborhood to the fullest. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jim Patochik. I also would like to speak on the need for a pedestrian path along Cimarron Drive. I moved here in 2001, and since that time, probably for the last 15 years, I walk and I bike, was no problem. However, for the last couple of years, as was said by the previous speakers, it has become an issue. And I don't see it get any better. It's probably going to get worse with the building boom that we're having right now. Basically, all the streets that feed into Cimarron have homes being built. The other thing, when it was first built, the Spoils Island, the sanctuary, wasn't there. Well, now it is. There are 170 lots in the sanctuary. 100 have been built on, so that's going to be another 70 homes with all the traffic going in and out. The other thing that's going to happen, along with all the building going on, once people move in, you're going to find out that you're going to have the lawnmowers coming in and all the maintenance coming in. That's going to put more stress on Cimarron Drive. What we are asking is, can the council approve your engineering group to look at the possibility of a pedestrian walkway along Cimarron? I know they have some ideas. We had talked to some of them, but I would just like to get an approval, have you approve them moving forward on this, and maybe use this as a experiment for other parts of the city, because I'm sure it's going to be coming up in parts of the city that do not have sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
James Moore. I purchased a home in Palm Coast in 2008. And since that time, I've seen absolutely no changes on rimfare as far as the walking conditions. I don't believe anybody in here has ever walked on rimfare on a wet day. Rimfare is the most horrible sidewalk there is. I think we need to get something done. It's green, slimy, filled with water. There's got to be ways to get the water off of that road and off of the sidewalks. People are going to get hurt. Second of all, I have a question on the pickleball courts. I don't know that pickleball has any kind of value that the city wants to spend tax dollars on pickleball. I don't know that you can play it in high school anywhere. I think if you go to any of these sports complexes, the baseball fields, everything that the kids do is overcrowded. We have them sitting in the corner playing t-ball. I think it would be better spent on that type of a situation. Pickleball, I don't know. I'd never heard of it, and I don't want to spend any of my tax dollars on it. So I think they should really consider where their money's being spent. But thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Oh, may I add one thing?
You have 90
Your
seconds. Go ahead.
Hearing impaired in here is terrible. I see people sitting back there that don't have a clue what anybody's saying. So I think we should do something for the hearing impaired too.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Robert Scove. I'm a tax-paying, voting resident of Palm Coast. I'm here today to voice my opposition to your boondoggle spending, especially when it comes to your tennis facility and pickleball facility for multi-million dollars. Mr. Webster defines the word boondoggle as work or activity that is wasteful or pointless, but gives the appearance of having value. Many voters want to know why such projects are approved without a mandate by referendum, or any resident knowing why. Many voters would like to know, after Parks and Recreation submitted some 25 items to be recommended for capital improvements, but that list isn't prioritized at all. If prioritized, I'm sure that something like your multi-million-dollar tennis and pickleball facility will be very low on the list. Could that why prove to be spurious, ambiguous, and unethical surprise? I don't know. Lest you think mine is a lone voice, it is not. I present you with a petition with some 70 signatures. And please don't scoff at that number, because there are other petitions out there right now being filled. And beyond this petition, there's a growing number of voters that shall voice their opinions in August of 2022. And let it be known that there are several thousand voters and their friends and their families and their neighbors who are also opposed to some of these spending ways. There are members from a few organizations in opposition, like the VFW, the Elks, the AMVETS, the Moose Lodge, the Italian American Club, the Social Club, the FOP Lodge, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, homeowners associations, the Adorable Deplorables Club, and the Trump Club, and the Flagler County Gun Club. Good day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker,
Where should I?
you can hand it to our communications officer.
Thank you. There's one caller, Mayor.
Okay.
A caller, you may speak now.
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Patricia Block, and I live at 105 Cimarron Drive. We have lived here since 2008. As mentioned before, my husband and I, along with many friends in our neighborhood, enjoy bike riding on Falls Coast's fabulous trail system. However, due to the access this biking and walking trails, it requires approximately a 1-mile ride on Cimarron Drive. It has been getting increasingly more dangerous over the years with increased traffic and speeding drivers. Cimarron Drive is a main access road that feeds so many residential streets and hundreds of houses, including the sanctuary. As residents, we'd like to see a minimum of a bike pedestrian lane on one or both sides of the busy street. To ride on the side of the road, which is now deteriorating terribly, as mentioned by earlier speakers, it's getting very dangerous, and there is going to be an accident. Please give this project serious consideration and refer it to the Traffic Commission for further study. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Henry Monsegier, and I've lived in Palm Coast for 18 years. What I want to address on is the pickle courts, whatever they call them, and the tennis courts. We don't need to spend our money on that stuff. There's a lot of things that could be done with our tax dollars around here, all right? And also, men going to ladies' rooms, come on. God didn't make just one person. He made two, men and women. And a man should go to the men's room and a woman to the woman's. It's getting crazy, this world. What else? Some of our neighborhoods, we could use some lighting on the streets. It would help, like the older people like myself, if we're walking at night, because where I live, over on Botany, Boulder Rock, you got a lot of old people walk at night, and some of them don't know enough to have lights, and they wear dark clothes. You can't see them till you're right on them, and they'll be walking around with some of them with flashlights. If we had some kind of lighting around, it would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. No, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. I will close public comment. First speaker that presented the public nuisance ordinance. I know I have recommended this to move forward in the past. I would just ask for a consensus from the council to put this on a future agenda for discussion.
Absolutely.
Matt? Okay, thank you. Cimarron Drive, last council meeting, we had a couple speakers first address this issue. We as a council have asked staff to put this on a list for our engineer to go out and look at, to come up with some solutions and bring back to the council, as far as also working with FDOT and TPO, Transportation Planning Organization in our area, to come up with some other suggested solutions and some funding applications for a solution. So we're already moving forward with that. I thank you for your participation here today and your continued interest. And the TPO director, by the way, lives over in that area. So I'll be sure to make sure that she goes out there and takes an extra look at it as well. So thank you very much. And rimfire, Matt, if you can have someone go out and look at the sidewalks to see, address the issue and see if there's a pressure washing issue we can address first and foremost, and look at the quality of the sidewalk. And obviously, we heard from the speakers as far as different amenities that are being proposed for funding, and those will be on future agendas for approval, but we thank you for your input and your participation today. So that concludes public participation. We'll move to approval of the minutes of April 6, 2021 business meeting and April 13, 2021 workshop.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 2 is a proclamation for Crime Victims' Right Week, April 18, 2021 through April 24, 2021. Councilmember Clufus will be presenting. I'd ask those receiving to please approach the podium.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Whereas the victim rights movement has resulted in the passage of laws at the local, state, and federal levels that established essential rights for victims. Whereas in 1982, the President's Task Force on Victims of Crime envisioned a national commitment that launched the victims' right movement, inspired its progress, and continues to advance the cause of justice for crime victims. And whereas incorporating communities' existing experts and trusted sources of support into efforts to fully serve survivors will develop a criminal justice system response that is truly accessible and appropriate for all victims of crime. With the unwavering support of the communities and victim service providers behind them, survivors will be empowered to face their grief, loss, fear, anger, and hope without fear of judgment, and will feel understood, heard, and respected. And whereas honoring the rights of victims, including the rights to be heard and to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, and working to meet their needs, rebuilds their trust in the criminal justice and social service systems. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to ensure that all victims of crime, especially those who are challenging to reach or serve, are offered culturally and linguistically accessible and appropriate, and trauma-informed services are offered to all victims of crime. And whereas the City of Palm Coast is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our communities and our victims' responders, and working for a better future for all victims and survivors. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, April 18th, 2021 through April 24th, 2021, be recognized as Crime Victims' Rights Week in the City of Palm Coast, and reaffirm this city's commitment to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime during Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all victims of crime so that they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and peace. Signed this 20th day of April 2021, City of Palm Coast, Florida, Mayor Melissa Holland.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank everyone for being here today. Would someone like to say some words?
Gary Perkins, Wellington Drive. I want to just thank the City Council, the Mayor for all the support, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office for everything that they do, and then just the advocates. They work diligently every day to make sure victims of crime are taken care of and have the support they need. So I just want to say thank you so much for acknowledging.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to agenda item number 3, which is proclamation for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and Vice Mayor Branquino will be presenting this proclamation.
Thank you, Honor. Once again, mind if I stay this way?
Absolutely.
So I could face the bit. Thank
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is a proclamation from the city of Palm Coast. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month calls attention to the fact that sexual assault violence is widespread and impacts every person in this community. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment impacts our community, and statistics show that 1 in 5 women and 71 men will be raped at some point in their lives. That 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience sexual assault before the age of 18. Young ages 12 to 17 are 2.5 times as likely to be victims of rape or sexual assault, and on campus, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted. And whereas, during 2020, Family Life Center, as the certified rape crisis center in Flagler County, provided 34 sexual assault-related community education events, 2,588 supportive services, and answered 69 sexual assault crisis hotline calls for survivors of sexual assault and their families living in Flagler County. And whereas the Start by Believing public awareness campaign, a program to end the evidence against women international, is designed to improve the responses of friends, family members, and community professionals so they can help sexual assault victims access supportive resources to engage the criminal justice system. And whereas the City of Palm Coast joins advocates and communities across the country because we are strongest when we raised our voices together to change the culture and prevent sexual violence. Prevention requires addressing the root of the causes and social norms to allow sexual violence to exist. April is a Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and each day of the year and an opportunity to create change for the future. And whereas the Flagler County Advocate Alliance, comprised of victims advocates from Bunnell Police Department, Family Life Center, Flagler Beach Police Department, Flagler County Sheriff's Office, and the Office of the State Attorney, 7th Judicial Circuit, is hereby dedicated to the strengthening victims of survivors and the aftermath of the crime, building resilience in our communities and victims responders, and working for a better future for all victims and survivors. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, in Florida, April 21, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. In the City of Palm Coast, I do hereby encourage all the citizens to support the Start Believing Public Awareness Campaign, signed on this 20th day of April 21 by the City of Palm Coast Mayor and attested by Virginia L. Smith as a clerk.
Gary Perkins, Community Relations Advocate for the Family Life Center, Wellington Drive as well. I want to thank everyone for their support. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is very big. I hope everyone can join us tonight at Food Truck Tuesday. Big thank you to Palm Coast Parks and Recreation for inviting us out. It's a great way to get out there and spread awareness about all the free and confidential services the Family Life Center has provided for the last 34 years. Once again, I just want to thank my colleagues for going to work every day. We see some heavy situations, but we never falter. We just want to make sure that survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence get the support they need. And I just want to thank everyone else for their support. I think it's super important that we acknowledge Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Every 73 seconds, someone is assaulted sexually, and every 9 minutes that someone is a child. So by the time this meeting ends, you'll be looking at 6 children that have been sexually assaulted here in our nation, and that must end. Again, if anybody has ever experienced sexual assault or domestic violence, or someone who has, please give them our 24/7 crisis helpline number. The number is 386-437-3505, or visit our website, www.familylifecenterflagler.org, to look at how you can help them and how you can just kind of guide them into the direction of our organization. Once again, I want to thank everyone. Our crisis helpline number is 386-437-3505, and we hope to see everyone for some great yums for Food Truck Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gary, I would also ask, the Family Life Center is always in need of donations and contributions, in particular, for their safe house, for their families that are in need. So I would suggest anyone that has the non-perishable goods, those items, toiletries, please feel free to contribute, and they can contribute where?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Mayor, for reminding me. Yes, we do have an emergency shelter. At this moment, a lot of kids' clothes is needed. The perishable goods are always good for us, but at this moment, kids, I want to say it was 4 to 7 boys and girls' clothes is always good. And then we also are in phase 2 of renovating our emergency shelter to accommodate any animals that might come through as well. So we'll start taking donation for food and just, any animal items. So thank you so much. We can't wait to open that up and make sure that, no survivor or any survivor can come stay without fear of losing their animal.
Thank you. Thank you again for all you do. Agenda item number 4 is a proclamation, May as Civility Month. The Florida Bar has requested we read this proclamation, so I've asked our city attorney to read it. I don't know if anyone's going to be presenting, so.
You'd like me to do it here?
Yeah, you can do it up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, citizens. I think I'm going to start by acknowledging and commending those citizens that spoke this morning for their civility during citizen comments. I think it's an excellent example of what I'm about to read. This is a proclamation of the City of Palm Coast. Whereas the open exchange of public discourse is essential to the democratic system of government. Whereas, as a cornerstone of democracy, Americans observed certain rules of behavior, generally known as civility. Whereas civility is derived from the Latin word civitas, meaning ironically city, and civis, meaning citizen. It's behavior worthy of citizens living in a community or in common with others. Whereas displays of anger, rudeness, ridicule, impatience, and a lack of respect and personal attacks detract from the open exchange of ideas, prevent fair discussion of the issues, and can discourage individuals from participation in government. Whereas civility can assist in reaching consensus on diverse issues and allow for mutually respectful ongoing relationships. And whereas civility can uplift our daily life and make it more pleasant to live in an organized society. Whereas the City, County, and Local Government Law section of the Florida Bar urges the adoption of a pledge of civility by all citizens in the state of Florida. Whereas the City Council of the City of Palm Coast declares that the month of May is Civility Month. And the City Council calls upon all of its citizens to exercise civility towards each other, signed this 20th day of April 2021, City of Palm Coast, Florida, signed by Melissa Holland, Mayor, and witnessed by Virginia Smith, the City Clerk. Mayor, I've been reading this, or something like this, for years now. And I think that it's important for all of us to recognize that how we debate, and that's what this is trying to say, how we debate, how we try to solve our community's problems, and we've heard about some of them this very morning, it matters. It matters that the potential solutions to these often difficult problems, and it matters for the next debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Now move to agenda item number 5, which is a proclamation for annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. Our city clerk will be reading.
Mayor, City Council, whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among professional servants. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local government bodies, and agencies of the government at other levels. Whereas the professional municipal clerks have pledged to ever be mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center of functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is the most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the mayor and the city council of the city of Palm Coast, Florida, that May 2nd through May 8th be recognized as Professional Municipal Clerks Week. And further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk and to all the city's professional municipal clerks for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Signed this 20th day, April 2021. Mayor, City Council, I'd like to take this opportunity to present the professional clerks that provide the service to the city of Palm Coast for all of your boards, and to take the time to say thank you for their service and dedication. Thank you for honoring and recognizing the Professional Municipal Clerks Week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 6, which is an ordinance on second read. Mr. Reichman.
Mayor, Council, this is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, for road closure of Slowway, a roadway within the City of Palm Coast as recorded in Plat Book 17, page 48, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Mayor, City Council, good morning. There were some questions at the last read, and we did not have the traffic engineer. I've asked Michael Grunwald, our traffic engineer, to be here this morning to give a brief update and presentation on where we're at Slowway, and to be available to answer specific questions that council may have.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The purpose of this presentation is to go through the thought process. How did we conclude that we want to close the road Slowway? On December 10th of 2019, I received a phone call from our signal and sign shop maintenance supervisor, Mark Torville. He told me that there was a stop sign that had been knocked down on an
I don't think
intersection on
anyone can hear you. Can you speak up to the microphone, please?
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll start over on this slide. On December 10th, Mark Torville, our sign and signal shop maintenance supervisor, contacted me. He told me that there was a stop sign that was knocked down on an intersection on the road Slowway. He said, you know, you need to take a look at this neighborhood. I don't know if just putting the stop sign back is all we need to do. There might be something else that we need to do here. So I started taking a look at the neighborhood, took a look at the area, took a look at the roads around Slowway, and then I went to the intersection itself. Slowway is only about 300, 400 feet long. So I stood in the middle of the roadway and I looked at the geometry of the intersection. Everything on both ends was fine. I took a look at the roadways themselves. The shoulders were showing a lot of tire impressions. If the geometry is fine, tire impressions mean people are not driving this road respectfully. They're driving aggressively through here and they're not paying attention to what they're doing. So on one end of Slowway, there's a dirt road. What that dirt road suggested to me is that this would be a very interesting place if you wanted to drive aggressively. As I'm standing in the road, neighbors came up to talk to me. What are you doing? They then told me of what they experience on a daily basis, traffic driving through here. Drivers driving on the lawns, driving in the swales, intentionally trying to plow up dirt with their vehicles traveling through the swales. So I got a call again on January 13th from Mark Torville again. Stop sign's been knocked down again. So we went out there, investigated the intersection again, and saw what the same thing I saw before. And so left it behind. It's a problem. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. On October 12th, four people from the city met at Sloganier and Slowway Trail. There was Councilman Clufus, City Manager Morton, Jason DeLorenzo, and myself. The residents of the area were very upset that detoured traffic from the Slowway, from the Seminole Woods detour, was traveling through their neighborhood. When I pulled up, there was nothing unusual that I saw. It was the same thing. Drivers were driving very aggressively through the neighborhood. There was a large proportion of heavy vehicles that were in the mix. There was just a larger volume, but nothing new. I figured as soon as this detour is gone, the problem will go away. So the four of us split up to talk to the residents. The thing that struck me was that there were four mothers who were among the residents who talked to us. Each one of those mothers had children in tow. Each mother took 5 minutes and passionately described that their children were not safe in their own neighborhood. The drivers through here were not new. This detour was nothing new. It's the same thing every day, whether there's a detour or not. The children are not safe. And after the mother spoke with me, she gathered up her children and walked back home. And that's what struck me. Each of these mothers had stopped what they were doing, had gathered their children, had walked some distance with their children to tell me very clearly that their children are not safe. So I started to think about what could we possibly do? Was there some change that was even possible?
Mike, can I interrupt you just for one moment, please?
Yes.
Mayor, City Council, Jason DeLorenzo. The city designed detour and signed detour for Seminole Woods Boulevard, did not use Slowway. That's the way there was already a cut-through established through the neighborhood, and so people were utilizing that rather than following the signage that the city had provided and the plan for the detour.
And one of the things that we did during that detour, based on this conversation, was we looked at Sloganier Trail and put up additional detour signs to tell traffic that went on to Sloganier Trail to direct them to go back to Seminole Woods Parkway. That was not very effective because most people have a GPS, and the GPS will tell you how to find an alternate route.
No,
But we made
think-
that attempt.
If I may interrupt, Matt, I think the questions that came from this council were very limited in scope last time that wanted to revisit this, so I'm not sure what the purpose of this kind of
Yeah, we
presentation
reviewed the
is.
presentation prior to this meeting. Mike, if you could get to the technical questions that we discussed in terms of the road design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to jump ahead?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the alternative route to using Slowway is, for the pass-through traffic, is Highway 1, going around. So taking a look, if we close off Slowway, the traffic that can exit from that residential neighborhood still has two places to exit, and that meets city code for land development code, two places to exit from the neighborhood. The Fire and Rescue Department, we checked with them as to how it would affect fire and rescue response. Fire and rescue approaches from the north, and closing of Slowway would not affect fire and rescue response time. So they asked us, well, if we do need to get through Slowway, we would like a lock, a fire and rescue lock put on the gate. And so that's part of the design. Contacted Flagler County Sheriff, and they said that we'd rather see Slowway stay open, but if it needs to be closed, then we would also like access with a combination lock. That also is part of the design. Checked with the city's staff to see if there was any other department that needed access to Slowway, and all of them stated that no, they don't need access to Slowway. So part of the presentation I want to do with this slide is address specific questions that I did not attempt to answer during the presentation. The presentation was put together attempting to answer the bulk of the questions that were presented by the residents. Some people asked for additional traffic studies or statistics. The road was evaluated based on observations of where the road was on the map, observation of cause and effect of what was occurring on the roadway, and resident statements of what's going on in the road. There is not a traffic count that I can think of that would determine empirically whether to choose to close the road. A number of comments suggested that there ought to be other options. If the objective is to get rid of the aggressive traffic from the residential neighborhood, the only option is to close the road on Slowway. Some of the residents made the observation that the opinions of residents are not captured. Our goal in identifying which residents to contact was based on which residents are bearing the brunt or the cost of this road being used as an arterial road as opposed to primarily a residential road. And so those are the residents that we focused on. One individual commented that mail could not go to 1 Shirley Place if Slowway were closed. I contacted the mail clerk at the City of Bunnell Post Office. He indicated to me that there was nothing that the city could do about the mail issue. Mail for 1 Shirley Place was delivered to the intersection of 2 county roads to the south of Slowway. Because the post office label for that address is Bunnell, the mail is carried by the Bunnell mail carrier. If the individual were to change their post office name to Palm Coast, then it could be carried by the Palm Coast mail carrier and delivered by the mail carrier that delivered to that neighborhood. That would not require the person to become annexed to the city of Palm Coast. In fact, her current address is unincorporated Flagler County. It would only be a label change so that under the federal rules of where the mail is divided, get followed so that they could assign it to the Palm Coast mail carrier. Reviewing, this is the design. Just wanted to point out a couple features about it. It is a crash-worthy designed gate. It is designed with a pedestrian opening to get through both pedestrians and bicycles. And it will have a lock on it that will make it accessible to both Flagler County Sheriff's Office and to the Palm Coast Fire Department. Any person on that staff can open the gate under their own prerogative. They don't have to seek anybody else's authority. So the mothers voiced their opinion that their children were not safe. The evaluation of the roadway all showed the same, led to the same conclusion, that that slowway is not a road that's required for the Palm Coast network. It's not necessary to service this neighborhood. So the city of Palm Coast recommends the closure of slowway.
Okay, Council, I would ask for any questions or comments at this time before I open it up to the public.
I do.
Okay?
Just yesterday, excuse me, I went to the place together with Matthew Morton. We stayed there for a good, half an hour? And we were also greeted. And I'm not gonna say how they greeted because it involves the middle finger. I have no idea why. But anyway, one of the problems that we saw, that I just presented to you this morning, was if anyone comes up on 325, which they could, and if they can't turn onto slowway, how are they gonna go back? They can't turn the cars around there. There's no place to do that. In order to close slowway, we're gonna have to spend the money and go into somebody else's property in order to leave room for someone to turn. They have no way to turn, okay? This is what I found. We have bad drivers, no doubt about it. And the proof was that we saw some tire marks there. In that half hour, we saw one car. Maybe it was just pure, that was just pure, whatever. We saw one car there. If you close slowway, the people that will come around, they will have to bother everybody. They will be driving the same way on slow drift turn, which is the only way out. If they come from Sloganier Trail, they could go around. But if they come from 325, they are going to have to back up to 330. And still 330 for a utility trailer or any bigger truck, you're going to have to back up to 1. And you're talking about a long distance. That's one of my worries. I really don't know. I don't have the solution. Like the sheriff said, for me, if I'm driving a police car and I'm responding to someplace and having to put a key getting out of the car without all the adrenaline that involves, having to open the gate, close the gate, and go away. I don't know. To be honest with you, as much as I wanted to please the one person that says we should close a place, that no homes are on slowway, no entrances are for slowway. There's no entrances. Slowway, it's a very small street. It's like from here to the end of the room. The only thing we have there that I think personally that we should be concerned about, and I didn't see it, but people are here telling us that it's bad drivers. That's the only thing we see over here, is bad drivers. And I don't know if we, as a body here, could do anything about bad drivers. That's usually left with my colleagues, that we shouldn't, even give them more work because they already got plenty of work to do. But the thing is this, if you come up on 325, how are you going to turn around? Are we going to create a circle over there? Are we going to block people from coming up that street? Because from slowway to the end of 325, there's a dead-end sign. So signs work. Signs work. What don't work is disrespectful people. And for those, unfortunately, we cannot educate. The only thing we could inform them of what's going on. But I doubt that a bad driver will change if we tell him, hey, you can't do that. Usually when they see a uniform, they tend to believe us. For us, they stop being citizens to become voters, like we heard here today. People of Palm Coast, before they become voters, they are residents, they are people that live here, that we should respect as people, as residents. As voters, that's for the silly time. That's for elections time. So I like to refer to people of Palm Coast as constituents, residents, the ones we have to respect. When someone comes here and tells us that, refers to them as voters, weirds me a little bit. I am a little bit worried about that. When I say weirds me, it's not just, and I chose that word specifically. So therefore, unless I see a solution that will turn people from 325 and guarantees me that the people from Slow Drift will not be bothered by all the traffic that's not going to make a left on Slowway, I'm opposed to this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would also say that that is my main concern. It's a super difficult problem here because I see firsthand for a fact that there's commercial vehicles that are traveling and using Slowway, like Councilmember Branquino said, which is just a small little cut through that they're the ones who are causing all the issues. People who have shown up in support of keeping Slowway open, I would wager to say are not the problem. It's the commercial vehicles that are coming up at 6, 7 a.m. and later in the evening, and I've thought the same thing about how they're going to kind of K-turn out, and it's almost impossible if that, unless we actually put the gate in the middle of Slowway. I don't suspect that the vehicles that I have seen sent to me that travel on Slowway, I don't suspect could actually make a K-turn if Slowway was closed at the end. I would ask city staff if they would agree with that summary, but on the other hand, I'm very much, willing to listen to the people who were there, and it is a non-0% chance that eventually there will probably be an accident there. I was there when Seminole Woods was being diverted through, and the through traffic was intense, and there was enough children there with mothers for me to see that there's a non-0% chance that there could be an injury or risk of injury for someone, and that weighs heavily on me because it's really just the comparison of the inconvenience that this creates versus potentially saving someone's life. And that's the confliction that I have. But if we're going to create a problem where vehicles are traveling up 325 and they can't get back out, we can't have that either. And we're going to end up having, a 2.5 ton vehicle stuck sideways in the side of 325, to be honest. So I'd like to hear others' opinions on how they fall. This is a conflicting issue.
Well, first, let me just, Matt, your staff has recommended this. This is your staff's recommendation. I'm assuming you have reviewed this and have certainly gone out there enough times. Why did the city staff just go for closure without limiting trucks through, as we did in Florida Park, and looking for other solutions that perhaps would mitigate some of the issues experienced by some of the residents?
Just from the nature of the conversations, I think where this started, and I take responsibility for that, as you guys, as everyone's aware, usually when we start down a path, or sometimes when we start down a path, we get so focused on what we think is right in front of us instead of considering options. I think this is one where, to somebody's point that spoke, we did not bring multiple options to council, which is typically what council asks of us, is to evaluate different options to achieve goals or results. So that comparative was not done here. To your point, the Florida Park Drive truck ordinance, I believe, has been successful. I've heard different levels of success from the residents and from the FCSO. And so that recommendation, we stayed consistent for council today and what had come to you from months back, but have not completed a thorough alternatives analysis or tried a staged approach, to your point of, do we try signs first, additional enforcement plans, or other mitigations that could, Councilmember Aquino and I had talked about some different potential mitigations that could have been interim steps that still, I'm not saying we're trying to make everybody happy, but that would ameliorate some of the concerns, but yet allow, access to the roadway and other functions. So we did not complete a full alternatives analysis is the short answer.
Okay. Councilmember Barbosa, then Councilmember Danko, and then we'll ask for any further staff input before we open up to the public.
Yeah, so it's County Road 325. I mean, it could be simple as just putting a no-through traffic sign. You know, if trucks see a no-through traffic sign, I don't think they're going to attempt to go down that way. I was there, I seen cars on top of people's lawns, in the middle of the lawns.
Okay, we're not doing that, please.
That's about it.
Yeah, I've been out to the location 2 times. I've seen heavy traffic. I have concerns like Councilman Kloufis that, we're looking at an inconvenience versus a possible injury or death. And so that does concern me. I've been out twice. I've seen a lot of traffic. I believe there's a dead-end sign going into that on the county side. And I would also think, since it's a county road, if they needed a turnaround, that would be the county's issue to deal with, certainly not the city of Palm Coast. So I am in favor of closing this.
Did you have any additional input before we open up to the public?
Yes, Mayor. It was our intention, if you did want to move forward with this, to coordinate with Flagler County on signage, no outlet, no through traffic signage. We'll also work with the mapping companies to show the road as closed, so that would help with the GPS portion of it. As far as an alternative analysis, when we were looking at this neighborhood is not acting or doesn't look, the traffic through this neighborhood doesn't look like any other place in Palm Coast, because it's acting as an arterial instead of a local road, and that's why we didn't look at the no truck or truck access type of thing, because you have a regular Palm Coast loop with a connection to a highway, and we couldn't find another location like that in the city.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there isn't alternatives,
Yeah.
but that was
Okay.
our thinking. That's why we continued to pursue the closure rather than an alternative.
I guess I would have preferred you go to the county to come up with an agreement before you bring it to this council for adoption, because what I would hate to see is have zero input from the county. This is what happens in Flagler County. We go through an exercise without our neighboring governing partner, and we're adopting something that frankly, we don't know the county's input and what they're capable of doing, what they're willing to do. So I would have preferred it to be a complete comprehensive package coming before us for adoption, to say, we've met with our county partners, they have committed to doing this. This solves some of the other concerns, the outliers that were brought before this council or individually by council members. That's just not been done. So to sit here today and say, we're going to take action and then go to the county and see what they're able to do or willing to do, puts us in a very awkward position, because we're adopting an ordinance on a second read. That codifies that. That means that we are now moving forward in this regard without a neighboring government body that also has a process that they have to go through. So to me, it doesn't seem like we have gone through this approach in a way that ensures the collaborative process is vetted properly and brought back before this governing body to say, we've addressed these concerns. We've signed off from the Sheriff's Department to Vice Mayor Branquino's point about pulling up to a scene and having to manually unlock something. Those are issues. Those are issues of unintended consequences that may be that we end this point in this direction where it makes sense because it is an unusual roadway within our jurisdiction, but it doesn't mean that everything has been put in order for us to do that today. So I'm very uncomfortable moving forward when you're talking about a county government. Has there been any discussions, Mr. Morton?
That was the whole question, is where do you start and where do you end? Because I didn't want to have 5 or 6 other government entities involved with the conversation before the city council even knew that it was a conversation.
But we're adopting an ordinance. It's different when we're talking about it and saying, council, as a consensus, would you like to move forward with this issue for consideration, understanding that we now have other entities that we have to engage and involve and get their buy-in. That's a completely different scenario in my mind. An ordinance on second read, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Reichman, is a codification in our codes that is now formally, officially adopted and takes a tremendous amount to undo.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this process is not a resolution, this is an ordinance. It's in compliance with Chapter 166 of the Florida statutes. What that means, Mayor, is that if this ordinance receives your approval today, in order to change this, you'd have to go through the exact same process again. Codification will occur should this ordinance pass on second reading.
Mayor, I agree with you. Maybe we should table it until we hear back from the county. Can I make a motion to table it?
You can make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table it until we hear back from the county.
I'll second it.
If there's no time certain.
It'll just have to be advertised again, but certainly you can table it for not a time certain.
Okay. But we still open up to the public.
At this point, if it's tabled, we stop the process. It'll come back, and we're not having the second read today. You're tabling the second read.
Madam Mayor, if we do table this, can we put some sort of time limit on working with Flagler County to deal with this situation, so it doesn't drag on for 6 months or whatever?
Matt, I would ask you.
Yeah, I was hoping I could interrupt, so appreciate the motion. The conversation I'm hearing, and our mea culpa, my mea culpa, is that I think a different approach even is warranted than just a simple conversation with Flagler County. I think we'd come back and hear what Flagler County said, but that doesn't, from what I heard, doesn't seem like maybe what council's objective is. And so my initial thought of staff is figuring out a more comprehensive approach, a more thought-through approach, and maybe delivering some options to council, not to keep this moving forever, but to take the time required to do some thoughtful considerations as we had discussed, and bring that back with those other conversations to the council. I don't have a time frame for that. We just went headlong this last few weeks into budget and some other things. Not like we're going to shelve it, but we'll continue to move it
certainly
forward.
Ask that it be a prioritization, and that's something that we can do as a council.
My concern is if a child gets injured or killed while we're doing this, and if we're talking about just some signs and maybe they do a turnaround or something, one would think that they could get on board pretty quickly.
I'm not going to speak for another government
Yeah,
body.
but if not, we still have to deal with our community. Their problems become their problems in a sense, and I understand and appreciate how we want to work with the county, I get it, but I would just feel real bad if something happened.
Well, I'd still like to hear from the sheriff's office as well. We've not had an official letter from the sheriff, so that has got to be part of this process.
Would 30 days be a reasonable amount of time to?
I can't say that it is. I mean, I really would like to go back. I know when we talk about signage, it's not just deciding to bury some signs in the ground. There's some analysis that will be done on location, type, quantity, talking with legal about a potential ordinance for trucks to bring back, some different, we have precedent with Florida Park Drive, makes that easier, but going through that process, and then the county and the sheriff are generally pretty responsive, obviously. If they have to talk with, not the sheriff, but if anyone at the county has to talk with their leadership and the county council wants to schedule this for a conversation, I can't predict that. Right. So we will definitely, again, we're not trying to stall for time, but I do need the appropriate amount of time to bring back what council I heard was we didn't do a thorough enough job, and you'd like us to bring back a fuller discussion and options to you as a council.
And
instead of-
as a prioritization that we're asking for resolution. So I think that takes care of that, and it can be addressed fairly quickly on some of the government entity side. I just want to make sure we're at least inclusive in our discussions. So, okay. I will call the question. All those in favor on the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. We will now move forward to agenda item number 7, which is there's no public comment, sir. It's been tabled.
So you told us we couldn't talk us a little like before.
Okay. Sir, we're moving on in the agenda. You'll be notified when this item comes before the council again for public comment. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, which is an ordinance on first read.
Mayor, council, this is a first read of ordinance for the Airport Commons Comprehensive Plan Amendment, application 4604. This is a legislative matter. It's an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the City of Palm Coast 2035 Comprehensive Plan, as previously amended. This is pursuant to Chapter 163, Florida statutes, and amends the future land use map, or FLUME, designation for 3 acres more or less of certain real property generally located at the southeast corner of Airport Road and State Road 100, as depicted and legally described in Exhibit A of this ordinance, from Flagler County future land use map designation of commercial, high intensity, to City of Palm Coast designation of mixed use, providing for conflicts, ratification, and prior acts, codification, severability, and provides for an effective date.
Thank you, Honorable City Council. This continues, I think, the process of the Airport Commons annexation. I don't believe we have a long presentation, a quick update from Jose Papa of our Community Development Department, and able to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Ray Tyner, Deputy Chief Development Officer. This is Airport Commons. It was annexed officially into the City of Palm Coast on January 1st of this year. Part of the process when you annex property into the City of Palm Coast, you take the equivalent, what the county designation for the future land use map is, to the equivalent of what the future land use map designation is for the city, and same thing with the zoning. So this item and the next item, Jose has one presentation, but you would have to act on both of those.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. Jose Papa for the Community Development Department. Again, this is about Airport Commons. We have 2 applications in front of us today, a future land use map amendment and a zoning map amendment. This is essentially a housekeeping item, mainly to change the Flagler County designations on the property to City of Palm Coast designations. Just a quick background. Again, it was annexed at the beginning of this year. It's about 4 acres. And the Planning Board did have a public hearing to receive public comments on these matters last month, March 17, 2021. There were no comments received from the public at that time, and there were really no comments from the Planning Board also during the public hearing. As we know, the Airport Commons is now a developed property. It's a developed retail center with Planet Fitness and some other items, some other uses, including restaurants, Firehouse Subs, and other personal service businesses, haircut, nail spa, and also Smoothie King, of course. So the proposed future land use map amendment, and you can see that it's going to look somewhat obvious. Commercial high intensity is the Flagler County designation at this time, so the proposed future land use map designation, city designation, is mixed use. Essentially no change in color from the county map to the city map. Same thing with the zoning map amendment. Current zoning is commercial 2. The proposed zoning designation is general commercial, or COM2, which is our city designation. With any future land use map amendment, we go through the analysis of just looking at the public facilities impact of what that change would mean. That on an overall level, the proposed flume designation, our city mixed use has a slightly higher development maximum than the city's mixed use high intensity designation. But as a developed site, there will be no additional impact on those facilities. Again, environmental impacts, the site's developed, and so this change will not have any additional impact on the environmental conditions on the subject property. Its consistency with surrounding land uses. The proposed flume of mixed use is consistent with the uses to the north, which are mixed use and DRI, to the south, which is industrial. The property to the east does maintain an old, it's the county designation of agriculture and timberlands, but the current uses on that parcel are consistent with what would be a commercial use of storage, office, and I believe there's also a residential use based on the property appraiser's records. Its consistency with comprehensive plan policies. The proposed future land use map designation will protect the existing commercial uses on the property, so it's consistent with policies that state that we need to provide for a balance of jobs and housing, and also meaning a balance of commercial, retail, and office and industrial uses on our future land use map. And the site is adjacent and is served by central water and central sewer service. So under the findings, again, for the future land use map amendment, there's no significant impact on level of service for public infrastructure, no significant impact on environmental conditions. It is consistent with the surrounding land uses and consistent with our comprehensive plan and the policies and objectives contained therein. So the recommendation, the PLDRB does recommend that City Council approve application 4604, which is this future land use map amendment from Flagler County designation of commercial high intensity to City of Palm Coast designation of mixed use. Moving on quickly to the zoning map amendment, again, a change from Flagler County designation of commercial 2 to city designation of COM2 or general commercial. Within any zoning map amendment, we have criteria in our land development code that we need to review and follow, and the analysis is provided as follows. The criteria for consistency with comprehensive plan. Again, the project is, or the development or the proposed change is consistent with policies for infrastructure availability and protecting the balance of uses. We've reviewed that there is minimal impact on the natural environment and minimal impact on public facilities, or no additional impact. Its impact on the economy, again, protecting existing commercial uses, and in this case, I think it's a commercial center that's widely used and very popular, even in its early stages. So there is a positive impact on the economy by protecting the uses that are there. And any changes in circumstances or conditions, it is the annexation of the parcel that necessitates these amendments. Again, we've gone through a review of the compatibility with the proximate uses and the development patterns. Does it accomplish a legitimate public purpose? And again, protecting those services in what would be considered an appropriate location directly on a major arterial like State Road 100 is very appropriate. So for the zoning map amendment, the PLDRB does recommend that City Council approve application 4605, a zoning map amendment from Flagler County designation of commercial 2 to City of Palm Coast designation of general commercial. And staff will be happy to answer.
Question then, I know the county currently does not collect impact fees. Obviously we do. Now that this is annexed in, does that mean the collection of impact fees are transferred over to how we collect them?
No, that was all done when they got their CO for the building. The county would have collected the impact fees that was required for the county. Now, what happened during the process of having this agreement for annexation, they did do improvements to the State Road 100 and Airport Road going in there. They widened that. So we did an analysis with them that, you know, if they were in the city, they would have got transportation impact fees for those improvements that they did. So in essence, they were made whole if they were in the city, they would have got credit. We would have them widen that road. So they did make improvements that were equal, if not exceeding, our transportation impact fees.
And utility?
Well, the utility, they pay all their utility fees, and they have to have a utility agreement and such, and that as normal. So they had to do all that through the utility department.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? comments?
Just, there's no significant impacts, and the one impacts that we have are positive. So I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you for all your previous work, too. I know that originally, when this came before us, there were some issues with the utility, so thank you for fleshing all that out.
I will open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to make public comment on agenda item number 7, please do so at this time. Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Take it back to this council, entertain a motion.
Is a motion for 7 and 8, or just 7?
Just
7,
number
we have to
7.
do it separately. We have to read them
All
separately.
right, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 8 is an ordinance.
Mayor, Council, this is the first reading of the companion ordinance. This is a rezoning and quasi-judicial. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code, amending the official zoning map for 3.8 acres, more or less, of certain real property generally located at the southeast corner of Airport Boulevard and State Road 100, being more particularly described in the attached Exhibit A from Flagler County designation of Commercial 2 or C2 to City of Palm Coast designation of General Commercial or COM2, providing for conflicts, severability, and providing for effective date. Mayor, Council, as I mentioned, this is quasi-judicial. First reading. If there's been any communications, ex parte communications prior to this hearing, those should be disclosed at this time.
Council, any ex parte communication?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm assuming, Matt, this is a companion. We will not be hearing a second presentation.
Companion and Jose discussed, yes, through the presentation initially.
Well, Council, are there any questions or comments on agenda item number 8?
Nope.
Up to the public. Any member of the public wish to make public comment on agenda item number 8, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, take it back to this council, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
And seconded, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 9 is a resolution approving Point Grand Apartments Master Site Plan, application number 4633.
And Mayor, Council, again, this is a quasi-judicial matter. I believe this is a continued matter. So if there have been any ex parte communications on this matter since the last hearing, those should be disclosed at this time.
Any ex parte?
I've had none.
I have received a couple of emails, and I've had several residents communicate their beliefs to me in person.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Council. This was heard at your business meeting on April 6th, and at that time, the item was tabled for the applicant and staff to come back and discuss the traffic study, and I believe that traffic study analysis was provided to council. And so we have, I believe, a presentation today, some information, and obviously answer questions that council may have in regards to this project.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. As Mr. Morton indicated, this was tabled at the April 6th, specifically for more information on the traffic study and transportation. So we felt appropriate that Mr. Hoover will provide a few slides, just a brief history of the project, a little summary, not a lot because we went through all that, and then a little bit about our comprehensive plan and our city codes as it relates to level of service and transportation, just a little bit of background. And then following that, it'd be appropriate that the applicant who provided the traffic study will have a presentation dealing technically with the specific traffic study itself. So.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. I'm Senior Planner Bill Hoover from the Planning Division. The applicant submitted a Tier 3 master site plan for a multifamily community of 300 homes on the 34.64 acres in the northeast portion of this larger 157-acre site. This was the site plan we looked at. You could see The project's about halfway between Belterre Parkway and Palm Coast Parkway northwest. There's 9 buildings back there. They're 3-story buildings. Almost all the buildings front on wetlands or 2 larger lakes. The main access comes down in alliance with Brushwood Lane on Pine Lakes Parkway. They got a second access to the east about 850 feet. Most of the project is surrounded by future general commercial in front, and on the sort of the bottom left side of the screen, Pine Lake Apartments is on the east side, and the rest is surrounded by wetlands. Across the street, there is a single-family community. Chapter 7 of the city's Land Development Code covers the city's concurrency standards, including transportation, and these are based on the state statutes and the city's comprehensive plan. State Statute 163.3177, Section 5A states, if concurrency is applied to transportation facilities, the local government comprehensive plan must provide the principles, guidelines, standards, and strategies, including adopted levels of service to guide its application. 5B states local governments shall use professionally accepted studies to evaluate the appropriate levels of service. And then further it goes on to state the schedule of facilities that are necessary to meet the adopted level of service shall be reflected in the capital improvement element. 5C states local governments shall use professionally accepted techniques for measuring levels of service when evaluating potential impacts of a proposed development. And 5D, the premise of concurrency is that the public facilities shall be provided in order to achieve and maintain the adopted level of service standard. So this gets over to the transportation element in the comprehensive plan. Policy 2.111 states the city adopts a peak hour level of service of D for all collector roadways, arterials, and highways. A level of service D is characterized by generally free-flowing conditions with measurable congestion during certain peak hour periods and at other times of the day that may last for short periods of time. Policy 2121, the city shall continue to enforce and update as necessary the concurrency review management regulations in the LDC to require developers to mitigate for the impact of project traffic on roadways. In this case, the applicant will pay, at today's rate, $1,809 per unit, or a total of $542,700 in transportation impact fees. These fees will go into the transportation improvement section of the city's 5-year capital improvement element. Land Development Code Section 7.0404A states the city shall not issue a final development order or an extension or an amendment to an approved development order unless there is sufficient available capacity of public facilities to meet the established levels of service. In this case, there will be a development order issued if this is approved.
Bill, let me just interrupt real quick. So when you address the fees will be used towards paying for transportation improvements in the city's 5-year CIE. But transportation impact fees have to go directly to the capacity in which it's adding to, correct? So when it goes into this plan, it's not in a road somewhere else in the city, correct? It's actually applied to the portion of the impact within that portion of the city that's adding to the capacity on the roadways.
Yeah, basically, Mayor, we don't have districts for impact fee districts. It's a citywide. So all these impact fees go into one bank account, so to speak. So when improvements are necessary, we tap into those impact fees that pay for it. So, not specific districts, but what we do site specifically is when we do traffic studies, they will give us a study, and we will do improvements that may be necessary based on technical knowledge and studies, such as turn lanes, for safety considerations that the city doesn't pay for. The applicant will pay for turn lanes, decel lanes, left-hand turn, right lane. Sometimes it may be even necessary to improve a traffic signal if a traffic signal is warranted. So those type of improvements are site-specific. But the fee for the impact fees, we have one base citywide. We don't have impact fee zones. And basically, our part of the presentation, we wanted to give you a little summary of our code that I think the main point as it relates to this application is that, the city comprehensive plan for this road segment on Pine Lakes, it designated as a level service D. So what happens is, the applicant will do a traffic study and we'll see what that level of service, what the current level of service is, and is it going to go beyond a D? Is it going to go to an E? Is it going to fail? Is it not going to meet our level of service? And when that happens, if that happens, state law even has prop share, which is pay and go. So we can't, from a transportation standpoint, if it is failing, the applicant will go into a prop share agreement where they would pay their fair share of how much they are with failing that road, and that's state law. So they call it the state law. It's kind of pay and go plan. But we do a great job at monitoring our roadways. We do it every 2 years. We take traffic counts, and our capital project plan is on top of making sure that we maintain our level of service. Pine Lakes right now is a level of service C from the study, and when the applicant comes, they're going to go through their methodology and what they did for the traffic study, and it still is being maintained at a level C. Remember, it's adopted at a level D, so it's above what the adoption level is of that roadway.
Mr. Tyner, may I also ask for clarity? There's a level of service E as well, right? It's not like school grades, A, B, C,
Right.
D, F. There is a level, okay.
There is a level E and then F, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, Mayor, would you like the applicant to?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically, the crust of the conversation last time obviously entailed the traffic and what we should focus on. So, yes, I think it's appropriate.
Morning, Mayor and Council. My name is H. Walker. I am with Chindelar Traffic Solutions Incorporated out of Jacksonville, and we are very thankful for the opportunity to kind of go over our study to come up with our analysis and results for the Point Grand apartments. As it's already been mentioned, we just want to kind of quickly take you through what we looked at as our study area. We had a methodology meeting with the City of Palm Coast to narrow down the focus of what we would be analyzing. Of course, we're looking at the corridor of Pine Lakes Parkway from Palm Coast Parkway to Belterra Parkway. We have 4 basic intersections that we're looking at, or entry points onto Pine Lakes. Obviously, at the 2 signalized intersections of Palm Coast Parkway and Belterra Parkway, we want to make certain that whatever improvement that we're putting on Pine Lakes is not impacting significantly to those 2 signalized intersections. Then we have what we propose as our main entrance, which is what we're calling the South Project Access, or at Brushwood Lane. And then, of course, a secondary access further to the north. And just to kind of give you a little bit more of a reference, here we kind of treated it more as a north-south roadway on this particular section. In order for us to try to see what type of impact that we're having, we have to take a look at what the existing conditions are today. And of course, Both Palm Coast and Belterre are 4-lane divided facilities. All 3 facilities, including Pine Lakes, are 45 miles per hour posted speed limit. And our least amount of daily traffic is on Pine Lakes, which is why it does have a higher level of service, which we'll get to later. But on Palm Coast, it roughly goes from 12,900 to 19,400 vehicles per day, our annual average daily traffic. And then, of course, in Belterre, 14,800 to 15,800. As it was just previously mentioned by the gentleman before us, that we take a look at the segment analysis. We are getting this information directly from the City of Palm Coast, from their spreadsheet that tells us currently what they're seeing in the peak hour as their number of trips, which is the existing, what they have vested typically of other projects that may be in the area that we want to take into consideration that will be added to the capacity on the roadway. How much traffic we are proposing to have, which is our project traffic. And then we take a look at that and see how much of the capacity are we actually adding to at this particular point. You will see here that we are talking about a phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is that residential, apartments with the potential for a pending commercial. So we went ahead at this analysis, make certain no matter if we did all of it at once, how much impact we might have on the facility. So if you'll see there for the residential, we're anticipating during the peak period 718 total trips. That is only representing about 45% of the available capacity that's allowed on that roadway. If we were to also add in the commercial, we will only represent about 55%. So ideally, overall, worst case scenario, there's more than 45% capacity still available on that roadway. And as it was mentioned again, level service D is what is the adopted, and with or without vested trips, with or without our project trips, it is currently at a level service C and will be maintained at a level service C. In coming up with project traffic, and this is something that sometimes gets misconstrued or misinterpreted, we use as planners, as engineers, we use a very national process of looking at and coming up with how many projected trips based on the land use and the size. So we get this information from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or as we like to call it, just ITE, Trip Generation Manual. In this case, we're looking at multifamily housing and 300 dwelling units. And it was mentioned in the previous meeting that these are all going to be 2-bedroom apartments. And sometimes the misconception can be 300 times 2, 600 vehicles. The trips do not equate the same way, that way. There's a lot of calculations that go into this to figure out throughout the entire day, we feel that there's going to be about 1,600 trips. Now, trip is not every vehicle. It could be one vehicle do 3 or 4 trips. One vehicle can do 1 trip. So throughout that day, it's how many times something comes in or out is about 1,600 vehicles. During that AM and PM peak period, we're looking at about 108 during the AM and 132 during the PM. Now, all those don't happen at the exact same time. So spread that throughout the hour to within 2 hours. You're looking at, maybe at the most about 30 vehicles at any given time, maybe a little bit less, but we're also looking at 2 driveway entrances. So we are spreading that distance as to where they're going in and out of the property. With that, in order to get to that full amount of impact of what we call the build-out traffic, we took what was existing, we upgraded it, adding a growth factor to the background year. We added our project trips, and then what we're analyzing is that full impact of all that traffic at the same time. As a part of that analysis, we want to take a look at are turn lanes necessary? And the reason we look at that is that concern is, 1, safety, 2 is capacity. We want to maintain that through traffic put as much as possible. So to separate turning vehicles out of that through lane is very important. And so we followed the guidelines that have been developed by the City of Palm Coast to see what those requirements were, to see if they are required, and if they're required, to what length should they be. And in this case, we do show, I wish I had kind of like a little thing to pointer here for you. Oh, there we go. On the north axis and on the south axis, the developer is proposing automatically to provide a left turn and a right turn out, so basically a two-lane exit. The key thing we want to know is what is the impact on Pine Lakes? So at that south entrance, which is the main entrance, it is required to put a northbound left turn lane. We're recommending 235 feet. That is based on using the Florida Department of Transportation Green Book, as well as the information from the Palm Coast Guide. So they work in tandem together to give us what is the recommended length. And then southbound, there's already existing one onto Brushwood, which we feel like we should not change. Let's maintain that. And then going to the right, southbound, we want to put in a 240-foot right turn lane. At the secondary entrance to the north side, we're adding in about approximately 300 foot. At this point, there's also a southbound left turn lane that goes into the adjacent street. So we're going to maximize that to the fullest length possible to put in that northbound left turn lane. So with that being factored in, when we did the full operational analysis, we knew we needed turn lanes. So we use what is called Synchro, which is based on the Highway Capacity Manual 6th edition calculations and methodology to find out how is the intersections operating. In that analysis, we made certain, since we recommended turn lanes were also a part of that analysis. And with that, just a reminder, and as Councilman already mentioned, this is not an grade scale of A through F. This is a comfort level. This is the quality level of how the road operates. So if most people might think an A is the ideal thing to have, actually it is not. A means you are underutilizing the potential of that facility to provide, cut-throughs to the efficiency to adjacent facilities. So A, in a perfect world, would be great if we can get all of them that way, but you're underutilizing that facility. F, yes, it can be failing, but there's a lot of factors that go into the failing. Is it congestion? Is it overcapacity? Is it your traffic control that's playing into it, or is it just certain times of the day? So we take all that into consideration. So as we let you know here, existing today is a level of service C. At the Pine Lakes South entrance, which is adjacent or across from Brushwood, we're able to analyze that existing. It is running from an A to B, depending on the time of the day. Obviously, at the north axis, it doesn't exist, so we couldn't analyze that at that particular point. But as we move forward, it will continue to be an A, B at the two project accesses, and across the entire Pine Lakes, it will still be maintained at a level of service C. If you were to dig into the full report, the only significant difference in there is we add maybe 1 second of delay. At the signalized intersections, we recommend some other improvements that actually brings the delay down significantly from where it is today now. If you're putting in a residential area, and in most areas, it's not all about just the vehicular traffic. We have to think about our pedestrians. We have to think about our bicyclists. And with me, I've been working in traffic and safety for over 20 years. This is a very big thing for me as well. Luckily, in this location, you guys have already put out that footprint of a shared use path. You want to have basically a walkable community. You want to have shared capacity for different users. So in this location, there is a shared use path on what I'm calling the west side. It does have a designated mid-block crossing with rectangular rapid flashing beacons that, if you can see here, it's not directly on the intersection, which causes a little bit from research and from past experiences, this can cause some confusion as to more conflict points for someone crossing there, especially if that turn lane were to back up. You see pedestrians crossing in between vehicles, and the expectancy is really off when you're so close to an actual intersection. So our recommendation when this is developed is either to relocate this mid-block crossing directly to this intersection or to the main access, which is further to the south. So that way, the driver expectancy as well as the user expectancy is you're seen at that particular time, and you're more likely to have someone crossing at an intersection, not in between. As an added keynote, we did go through and do some crash data review. We did not do a full safety analysis. That takes a little bit more time. We did just a higher level crash review to see what's been happening on that corridor. We did use the data source from FDOT because they do have an online repository where we can look at all this information. Over a 5-year period from 2015 to 2019, there were only 11 identified crashes on that corridor, particularly long-form crashes. And there is a distinction between long-form and short forms. There were 2 crashes that involved bicyclists, but they were at the intersection at Belterre. So within the corridor and where this project is going in, there has not been any significant crashes except for one that was near the North Project access. That was a rear end crash that someone was making a right turn into, was at Brookside, okay? So overall, our recommendation here is based on the traffic analysis that we are not impacting the roadway facility, that we are adding other improvements such as turn lanes and relocating for pedestrian and bicyclist activity, that we go ahead and add in turn lanes, relocate the crosswalk, and ultimately at the 2 signalized intersections, as this moves forward, it would be a coordination with the city as to having them optimize the signal timing, which gives an opportunity to decrease the delay actually somewhere between 5 to 15 seconds. So that is our overall, and I thank you for the opportunity to present this, and if you have any additional questions or comments.
Council, do you have any questions for either staff or our transportation consultant?
My concerns basically were not too related with traffic, even though that was one of my concerns. My only concern, which was already addressed anyway, was the populational high density. That was my other concern, and we already went over it, so no sense going over it again.
Thank you for the traffic analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any member of the public wish to make public comment on agenda item number 9, please do so at this time.
Steve Carr, Palm Coast. I have noticed that, and just really all of the traffic analysis, it's nothing against what the traffic analysis people are doing, but there is no coordination or as how it affects quality of life for people that live in the area. The level of service can change, and when that level of service can change, also the quality of life can change as to the noise, as to the traffic fumes, traffic dust, and everything. So that's just something I noticed. It's nothing that they've done wrong, nothing that y'all have done wrong. It's just, why are we not concerned about the quality of life of the people that live in the area? Just a question. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Take it back to this council. Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve this resolution.
Is there a second?
Council, let me remind you that we're considering today a site plan. We're not considering a comprehensive plan. We're not considering a land use change or a rezoning. This is technical analysis. You certainly have the right to consider those factors that are set forth in your land development code as far as whether or not this application complies with that. But if this council chooses not to proceed with approval of this application for a site plan, then the city staff will have to prepare an order it's required by Florida law to explain to the property owner and the applicant why the application was denied. And that order will have to say the reasons why the application was denied based upon the evidence that is presented today for the record as applied to our land development code and based upon the expert testimony that you have heard today as well as in the prior hearing. If the record does not support that, then it creates problems for moving this forward. So I would remind the council that we are required, this is a quasi-judicial matter, and we are required to follow the law and the record evidence that is presented to you.
I think it's important to note, as stated in a previous meeting, that this property has been zoned since before the city was incorporated in 1999 for multifamily housing. It's never changed as far as the rezoning process goes. So, to your point, Mr. Reichman, there is a very strong piece of state law that requires us to recognize property rights. It's no different than when we buy our property and we build our house on it. There are certain rules that are applied and standards to how the house will be built and to what standard it will be built. And so what is being considered today has to do with the fact of a proposal that was submitted to the City of Palm Coast in recognizing what the current land use is designated as, has always been designated as, has not been changed. What I heard last meeting were concerns about traffic. They went back and addressed a traffic study to look at additional capacity on the roadway, if it would cause an increase of cars in a way that we would have to recognize of adding additional lanes to this roadway. The study does not deem it necessary at this time. So, I guess before we get into a Burt Harris claim of litigation in which this council will be recognized as refusing a property right, correct? That's the correct way of stating it.
It depends upon what the record reflect, but that is a risk. Mayor, your points are all well made. We are not here today to debate the merits of whether or not apartments should be on this property. That ship has sailed.
If I may, like I said, today we're discussing the traffic concerns. Traffic concerns were never a concern to me, even though I respect my colleagues. And I'll insist on this, and I've seen it, like many times I have voted my way. It's the density, the high density, the population of high density. And if that is a problem for the applicant, then what it is, shall I vote just because they have the right to? For me, it's a concern, the high density. I just went to a place yesterday where they're building 2,500 homes. At this point, to be honest with you, 3-floor apartments in such a small area, it's high density to me. And I'm having a problem, personal problem, okay, with high density. That is the reason why I didn't second it, and if there's a second, then I'll decide how I will vote. Because I will only vote strictly on what I hear here. I didn't speak with anybody. But if I'm forced to vote, which I don't think I am, if I'm forced to vote because somebody is going to say, no, you got to vote, I don't want to have to vote. So my problem is a high density, populationally high density. There's no other problems. And I think I have the right to think like that. Legal or not, I think I have the right to think about that.
Madam Mayor, Council, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but this is not a legislative matter. This is a quasi-judicial matter, and it's at the level of in the process in this where we are not allowed to take back the vested rights that this property owner has today with regard to density. That's done. This is not a rezoning. We are only talking about whether the specific arrangement of that density on this site meets our code, and more specifically, whether or not the record evidence supports the traffic analysis and the impact on our public facilities. And from what I have heard, and I am not sitting on this council in a quasi-judicial capacity, but the substantial competent evidence supports a finding that this application has met the legal standard. And if it's this council's desire to deny this application, then I would ask specifically in that motion for the movement to cite to the record to support that motion to deny this application, so that your legal counsel, should the city be challenged, either an appeal or a Burt Harris claim, can look to the basis for this council's decision to deny that application.
Madam Mayor, I have a question, because I wasn't aware of this, so I want to make sure I understand. This property has always been zoned? We never did a zoning change?
Nothing.
I'll second the motion.
Can you please repeat the motion?
I will represent my motion to approve resolution of the Point Grand Apartments Master Site Plan Application 4633.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call to question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Passes 3-2. Okay, thank you very much for the discussion. We will now move to the consent agenda portion. Any member of the public would like to make public comment on agenda item number 10 through 18, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, take it back to this council, entertain a motion to...
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Public participation. Any member of the public wish to make public comment, please state your name for the record. You can please present at the podium, and you have up to 3 minutes after your name is stated.
Steve Carr, Palm Coast. My mailbox has been wiped out for the 3rd time in less than a year on Florida Park Drive. Speeding is constantly on Florida Park Drive. Don't know what to say about it other than it's there. It's constant. It's not going away. I'm concerned about the long-term health from being exposed to traffic fumes and traffic dust on a long-term basis of 8,400 cars a day. So there is a long-term health issue with that, according to scientific studies. And they've come out with a study now talking about nanoparticles. Nanoparticles, actually, from traffic fumes, will harm your immune system. We just went through COVID, where people that had a immune system that was compromised were in big trouble. So I'm concerned about that. My neighbors that are part of this grant for trees and plants and everything had the people come back and tell them that they had to move the plants and trees back 5 feet from where they had originally staked them out in their yards. And therefore, they are planning to not to do the grant. And they asked me to ask you, why were they asked to change the location of where they were originally set up to be? And so that's what I'd like to ask for my neighbors. But please do something about speeding on Florida Park Drive. It's every day. I mean, every day. Thank you.
Your comments. Next speaker. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Mr. Morton, if you can get with Mr. Carr, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, discussion by City Council of matters not on the agenda. Vice Mayor Branquinho.
I just have a couple of things, and they're all good. And they're all good, by the way. First, I believe that I have to inform or actually request permission from my colleagues. The first 2 weeks of June, I'm going to be away on a humanitarian/health reasons. And I would like to have permission from my colleagues to attend those 2 first meetings via Zoom. Do I have to make a motion on that, or somebody can make a motion on that, Mr. Reichman?
Mayor, this is just a matter, we have a charter requirement about a certain number of absences, consecutive regular meetings, and in communications with Councilmember Branquinho, I simply brought, and the city clerk brought this to his attention, and it would be appropriate just to acknowledge and to make a finding that his absence from a physical presence at these meetings is excused based upon the record that he has established. Yes. That's all that's required.
Yes.
So does it require an motion?
No.
No,
No.
just
thank you.
consensus.
But I would like to let my colleagues know it's gonna be for good reasons, so it's not. The other thing is that yesterday, I managed to take Matthew Morton away from his heavy schedule and went to visit Holland Park. I was as happy as a happy man could be. When I had a tour to the water splash park. I could only imagine the kids in there. I was visualizing the kids in there. The way it's set up, the safety part of it, it's unreal. I really was impressed with it. And for there, I want to congratulate all of you. The other thing, while we were there, once again, grabbed our city manager by the hand and says, yo, let's go talk with those guys over there at the bocce court, a bocce ball. That was about 15 people, 16 people there. All young. None of them were younger than 70. And then when we introduced ourselves, they stopped what they were doing. But let me tell you, talking about amenities, this gentleman, 87 years old, there's only one thing he told me. At this age, where am I going to go to have some fun? Oh, and that makes every single spent cent. It begins to make sense. Because at the beginning, it didn't make much sense to me either. But after you're speaking to the people that uses it, and I know for a fact that you have at least 3-4 leagues that use it weekly, more than twice, that actually mellows me up a little bit. And I think by talking with the residents, constituents, whatever you want to call them, it mellowed me up, and it brings warmth to your heart. And that was beautiful. I just think that we should all, I'm not saying you should go, but I was so happy that I went there and spoke to the people. And in the summer, when I see those kids, they have the special parks. And of course, I put my 2 cents, but I don't think they're going to go for it anyway. But that was very, very enjoyable, what I did yesterday. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Clufus.
The only thing I'd like to comment is on Councilman Branquino. I think you hit the nail on the head. We have to ensure that we still keep the focus on amenities, even if we ourselves don't individually participate in them, and make sure that we see the individuals who are using them and try to understand that perhaps even though we don't participate in that sport or amenity that they're utilizing, that they're extracting just as much value and joy and quality of life improvements that we probably are in the amenities that we enjoy. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbosa.
I spent around 5 hours or more on Florida Park Drive this weekend. Man, something has to be done. It's just such aggressive driving that they're doing over there. If you try to cross the street, nobody even stops for you. They're definitely not going the speed limit. It's getting dangerous. I don't know where we're at. I know we have studies going on with Florida Park Drive. I don't know where they're at right now, but it's getting really dangerous. That's it.
We just don't have studies. I would recommend you learn about what we voted on and what we're investing in, because it's quite substantial, and then maybe talk about it.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
So I'd like to pass something out, and if you could just pass this down, Victor. This is a result of something, I'm going to take my mask off so you can hear me. This is a result of a conversation that Matt Morton and I had several months ago, because we've both noticed an increase in litter in Palm Coast. And if you drive and you look on the side of the road, I think you're going to see a lot of litter that you probably didn't see. Now, I spent a good portion of my life in the great state of Texas, and Texas probably has one of the finest anti-litter programs in the country. They tailored their slogan to the Texas pride. It's called Don't Mess with Texas, and that's how Texans feel. It's a Lone Star state. And then they enforced it with some pretty stiff penalties. So Matt and I started discussing what we could do to maybe bring some community pride to Palm Coast, especially for these new people moving in, but put some law enforcement teeth into a proposal. So I met with our sheriff, Rick Staley. He's totally in favor of bringing his sheriff's department on board if we pass an ordinance that allows him and his sheriffs to write tickets to enforce this littering problem we have. I came up with about a dozen slogans. These are not in stone. These are just mine. Hopefully, other people will contribute, but I do think we need a slogan that represents our community, that our public can latch on to, that we can promote. And I think we need to have some teeth in some sort of law. And I know the fines that I wrote down here are just a recommendation. I know our attorney, Mr. Reichman, is looking into Florida law to see what we're actually allowed to write as fines for a misdemeanor. So this is just something I wanted to bring to the table, get a consensus on, and then hopefully Mr. Morton can move forward and staff could bring us something. But I think, I even understand we have one full-time employee that's out driving around all day picking up litter. I mean, that's not enough, but I mean, personally, just even on my own street, I walk my street, which is a mile long, Wasserman, once a week with one of those little pickup things in a bag. And I'm just amazed at the beer cans, the bottles, the junk food. And again, just drive up Belterre, look to the right as you're driving up, or to the left, whichever way you're going. And I think you're going to be surprised. So I just wanted to bring this in front of council, get a consensus. Hopefully we all want to do something about this increasing litter problem. Thank you.
So, Mr. Morton, since you've been engaged and involved with this conversation, have you spoken to the sheriff about his feelings?
I have not.
Because last time I talked to Sheriff Staley, he said he didn't want to put deputies just on litter patrol.
I met with Rick 2 weeks ago
And
in his office, and he told me that if given the power, if his deputies see somebody throw something out of a car window, he has no problem having them pull them over and write them a citation.
But you're not talking about adding additional deputies for
No, we're just talking about using the folks we have. We might even be able to use our cops. That would be something we'd have to work out with the sheriff, but he has seen an increase in litter. It annoys him. He certainly would like to help us deal with this problem. He was 100% on board.
Okay. Shift, I'm actually going to be speaking with him anyway, so I'll make sure I bring this up as well. But
And he actually picked out a slogan he liked the best. Every litter bit hurts was the one that he liked the best.
I'm sure. Okay, so, obviously this requires, coming back with ordinances and stuff. And, also, I do know we have an Adopt a Road program. We have a lot of things in our environmental group that's been brought to this council before. I think it'd be helpful, Matt, to get a presentation of exactly what the city currently does. I do know Public Works does a weekly roundup of cleanup on major thoroughfares, and I do know there's an Adopt a Road policy or opportunity for organizations and clubs to adopt a roadway to be responsible for cleaning up some litter as well, so I'm not sure how much that's promoted, but I would suggest we include that because we already have it in place.
Yeah, if you noticed on my list, encouraging groups, clubs, organizations to join the program, adding some assistance, like I think we presently do. I know the Kiwanis Club does a Adopt a Road thing, and I think we provide trash bags and safety vests. So it's a broad sort of, this is just a rough outline. But I think if we can somehow bring this to the public's attention, encourage some pride in Palm Coast, much like the state of Texas did in the state of Texas, and then put some law enforcement teeth into it for those folks that don't show that pride. And let's be honest. If you're driving down Pine Lakes Parkway or Belterre and you toss a bag from McDonald's out the window, it's probably not your first time. This is a bad habit that you learned, and it has stayed with you. Those of us that would never do that, well, we learned the right way. So that's why we need a little teeth. But I think overall, it might help us solve some of this problem and keep our city looking beautiful.
So, yes, I mean, I'm not opposed to this. I'm in support of it. But again, Mr. Morton, can you talk about the things the currently city does? I'm sure you're aware of. Adopt a Road is one of them, other things that Public Works does, other things that we do.
Now, or did you want the presentation? I'm confused.
No, just talk a little bit so the council's informed
Oh,
about what
okay.
we're
So
doing.
we do have one full-time employee currently that picks up litter. That is their role. Also, as you'll probably notice, our mowing crews who are out mowing right-of-ways and swales and other community areas, they all have buckets attached to their lawnmower. They pick up garbage that is there. I know last year we had a campaign and an effort that was cut short with I'm not trying to blame anything else on COVID, but that was that time in April, and we did all of our lockdowns in March to try to raise awareness on the littering issue. And we have folks that work through the Earth Day program and other awareness programs on litter. And then, to your point, I'm not currently up to speed on how well we market or the awareness or the protocol to get into the Adopt a Road or Adopt a Street. I don't know that we have, those local programs. That's something we can report back on to council.
Well, we do have those programs. I'm surprised you're not aware of them.
Not.
Yeah, so Denise, I know that's been presented to the council before, so can you speak to that? Because we definitely do have a program. This came up at our workshop of.
Yep,
public-
I remember
Yeah.
even seeing a percentage of the roads that were sponsored.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good morning, Denise Bevan. So to the question at hand, what programs that we have, two immediate come to mind. The first is our annual waterway cleanup event that's very successful, but due to COVID, had to be minimized quite a bit. And then we also have Go Green information on the city website that houses how you can adopt a road, adopt a median, adopt a shoreline, adopt a park. So there are pieces of information out there that are managed. We do recall putting an emphasis on it in previous years. I actually believe it was part of the SAP discussion.
Yes.
So we did take that back and talked about doing not only the waterway cleanup in September, but also a spring event, so we could hit it 2 times a year and build that momentum of awareness of litter. So those are the things off the top of my head without going into a very detailed description of other things we do.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know we had that conversation, obviously, as a council, and included that. So this will be in a continuation of it. And then, Mr. Reichman, obviously, you'll have to provide input
Of course, Mayor.
as far as ordinances and other municipalities.
I'll
Okay.
work with staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does that conclude your comments?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, thank you. And I have nothing at this time, other than we are following up with the sheriff's request for the bus stop to be included.
That's correct.
Okay.
We've already looked at the current code, and I can report to you that the current code was adopted in the early 2000s, and it's interesting because in the whereases, it does reference bus stops, but then in the adoption language, it doesn't. So we're just going to add it in.
Okay.
I can't answer that. As they say, for my time, but it was a good catch by the sheriff, and we're going to fix it. We're in the process of preparing the ordinance.
Be a clean process, one
yeah.
that's easy to just, it's sort of like adopting it so it's uniform to the.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to be adding about 3 words, and that is bus stops. With an appropriate adjective that's consistent with the Florida statutes, the language that's in the Florida statute. My best guess is that it was a Scrivener's error back in 2005.
Okay. So are we expecting that on a future council? Mr. Martin?
It's going to be ready for either your next workshop or soon thereafter. Yeah, this is not a big change.
Perfect, thank you. Discussion by city attorney?
No.
Okay, that was your discussion.
Yes, that's correct.
Discussion by city manager of matters not on the agenda.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Motion
Ready?
to adjourn.